Hey guys, it's your course director Emily Ray here. Just wanted to give you a little bit of positive, productive feedback on these text-based resumes that you recently submitted. I'm going to go through each one individually and point out a few things to be thinking about between now and the next time that you work with this content. And believe me, you will be working with this content regularly throughout the MCBS program. For many of you, and I can tell just by what you submitted here, this was not the first time that you've dug into potentially building a resume. So a couple of things to be thinking about as you proceed both through portfolio and through MCBS is, are you establishing a clear connection between the skills and experiences you've listed and ultimately the types of jobs that you want to get in the media communications industry? What that means is that, like, if you're seeking employment as a graphic designer, you need to show relevant experience in that realm on your resume. Likewise, if you want to be in social media, you're looking for ways to showcase skills and abilities in that area. So you're in portfolio 3. That means you have plenty of time to build that skill set or gain that experience if you have identified a gap. So let's say you have an objective to be a videographer, except you don't really have any experience with that you can put on your resume. The good news is that you have quite a bit of time between now and graduation to figure out what that looks like. Maybe it's an internship, maybe it's a project that you develop, maybe it's volunteer work. There's probably an answer that will fit your situation. And as you continue to develop, your professional work, be thinking about not just, what you were tasked with doing, what you were assigned with doing in a given role, but ultimately what you were able to accomplish as the person in that role. What was the unique value that you added that potentially nobody else could have? Obviously, spell check is important with resumes, and so certainly you guys will want to apply that feature in the given software that you use, and then have a trusted set of human eyes to make sure that you're not misusing words. Okay, I've had several students who talk about their customer service experience, except they say costumer service experience, and that's not something that spell check is going to get because costumers is a real word. So you want someone who is going through this with you to make sure line by line that you're saying what you intend to say. Now, Wendy Walzer is our career development advisor for MCBS, and she works with you as you approach the end of MCBS and get closer to graduation. However, you can reach out to her at the email address listed here. If you want her to mentor you or to take a look at your resume and provide feedback before you get to that point, they've scheduled these open office hours for students who are not close to graduation to be able to come in and work with the career advisors. Last but not least, you guys definitely want to keep adding to this document. It's a snapshot of your skills and experience at any given point in time. And, as you are growing and changing and learning more, your resume should be updated to reflect that. So let's just jump right in. All right, so we're going to start with Rafe's resume here. So based on the objective, I can see that you want to use your creative skills to help companies. Your summary of qualifications highlights your skills sort of in the creative realm. But scrolling down here, I can see you've had a number of different work experiences that I'd like for you to detail a little bit more, right? So like, what does this really mean? What was the sort of the objective? Tell me more about each one of these projects or these jobs that you're highlighting, because from what you shared, I don't really get a full idea of the scope of the work and how you contributed in those areas. I think there's an opportunity for you to put more information out here. Now, you have a lot of visual assets that you're creating for companies and for clients, so you're definitely going to want to point people to a portfolio website. And that is a recommendation for everybody. So certainly, moving forward, the next version of these resumes need to include that portfolio website that then, is where you show your skills and abilities, not just talk about them. Kind of scrolling down here, we can see your education and then your technical skills here in Adobe and some of the other editing platforms. I know that you are involved in a lot of different projects as well at school, so certainly that there's a place for that on your resume, especially if you're taking on leadership roles, because it shows collaboration and the ability to manage like complex timelines and personalities within group work. But also, that's something that would be good content for a portfolio. So Rafe, I think that there is an opportunity there for you to just be a little bit clearer in the articulation of, yes, you want to use your creativity, but what does that look like and how do you accomplish that? Next up, we are going to take a look at Kiana's. So here, also saying that you want to create art through these realms. You say in your summary of qualifications here, certain technical skills and different sort of dimensions within media and communications, but then you kind of follow that up down here with your skills. So you're basically saying the same thing in these two areas. So you'll want to rework that information, consolidate it in such a way that makes the most sense for how you want to communicate this. Again, you're talking about photography and videography and design, and so certainly, what needs to be included on this resume is a link to your portfolio where I can actually see your skills translated into assets that you've curated that showcase the best of your work. Now that you have some of your college experience, you don't need to include your your high school degree here. And then you'll want to more fully explain, your volunteer work. There's a great example of it, and we're going to jump over now, and it is on Joya's, right? So if we scroll down and we take a look at Joya's experience, you can see she talks about, where she's doing the volunteering, how long she did it, but also like, what did it mean to volunteer there, right? So yes, you said, potentially, being a waiter at a nursing home or working with the elderly, but there's more that you can tease out of that to more fully paint the picture of what you did there. Now, just jumping kind of directly into the idea of volunteer work, I also want to encourage you guys to be thinking about how can you contribute your media communication skills in a volunteer capacity, right? So yes, if you're going out to feed the homeless, you could work at a soup kitchen, like ladling soup, or alternatively, maybe that soup kitchen needs somebody to design a flyer for their Thanksgiving food drive, and that could be a way that you could both contribute in a philanthropic sort of way, but also create an asset for your media portfolio and gain valuable skills and experience in the meantime. So let's talk a little bit about Joya's resume here. So she has over 10 years experience with sales and in client relations and communications, but it also mentions being a media strategist and a branding coach. As I scroll down, I can see, yes, you talk about your degree here and your skills and abilities that you sort of highlighted and put it on blast by making it bold and all cap. Something I want to say about that is, when you select bold or capitalization, you're doing to emphasize a certain point or to draw attention. But if everything is bold, then nothing stands out. And so I really encourage you to, use that style in a very sort of, just be very discerning about the appropriate ways to use it, and that using it a lot waters down the effect. Scrolling down, I can see that you've worked as a student liaison and in the enrollment area. So, that speaks to your client relations. And then in account management here with jewelry design and operations. And so something I want you guys to think about, especially if you have a really long resume that's, extending into multiple pages. One thing to highlight here is that Joy has done a really amazing job of talking about what she's done at all of these different, places of employment or in her volunteer opportunities. She's fully, she has fully spelled out what it means to be a student liaison and what she did in that role. She fully spelled out what it means to be, working in enrollment, at Full Sail. And, she paints the picture so that we know what that role entails and then ultimately can envision what she might be able to do at our company, right? But if you are applying for jobs, you might need to be a little bit more choosy if you have 10 years of experience about what to include on your resume, right? Because you don't want people to get lost or overwhelmed with a whole bunch of information. So perhaps, if Joya is applying for a certain type of position, she'll go back through this catalog of her skills and experience and pick out the most salient points that help support her for any given role. Right? So scrolling down, again, just want to say, like, perhaps if she's applying for some sort of job that wants management experience, then she would definitely want to include the operations manager and potentially any of these other jobs that she did working as a manager. One thing to note is that she's listed them here, but she doesn't find them to be particularly relevant on this resume, so just listed them. And so, if someone was interviewing her, they could ask her about, the job at Verizon and how she felt that led, her to the path that she's supposed to be on. So again, you want to make thoughtful decisions about what information to include and why based upon the jobs that you guys are applying for. I'm going to jump over to Orange's resume here. So the assignment just called for text-based resume, and and I even asked you not to apply a lot of design work to it because I wasn't going to comment on the design, because this is solely about developing the text, that is the articulation, the words, the descriptions to talk about your skills, abilities, objectives, and the kind of work that you want to do in the media communications industry. But one thing I want to point out is that this is kind of just like a scrolling list here without much formatting, and if we think back to what you guys learned in editing for the web, with how people scan information in that F-shaped pattern. They use headings, subheadings, and bulleted lists to jump to various parts in documents because people are looking for bits of information and are busy and task-driven in an online environment. So I'm looking at this document on a web page from within FSO, and so even though this might have intended to be just maybe a list or a Word document, I'm looking at it almost as if I'm looking at it like a web page. And so I just like to point out when I can how the concepts and techniques that you're learning in various courses can be applied across mediums and across potential applications that you might not have otherwise thought about. Scrolling down, we could see that Orange has a lot of experience in social media, editing, video, has a military background, is able to work in dynamic environments. Scrolling down, we can see that you have some professional experience doing marketing and photography, and then some social media coordination. And you do a nice job of talking a little bit more in depth about what it means to, to operate in these positions. Scrolling down, you've got your high school diploma here. Since you guys have some college experience, you don't need to include that. Scrolling down, again, just sort of the long list of your your technical aptitudes and the ways and disciplines that you're applying your creativity. Certainly, and I know because I saw it at the top, Orange's Media, that's your portfolio site, or where people can go to actually see your work, and that's what I'd like to see on everybody's resume at this point. Certainly this is not something that you could submit for a job at this point, but you guys probably would do yourselves the favor if you just went ahead and had one of these application ready resumes on hand, because you just never know when opportunity is gonna knock, and you want to be ready for that. I look forward to working with you, Orange, as you continue through the program and keeping, developing that portfolio and a version of this resume that's ready to go in case that opportunity starts to knock. Here we have Paula, and so you identify yourself as a student and seeking to apply your skills and experience to help a business or a brand. Scrolling down, we see some of your soft skills in terms of leadership, time management, and then you've got your multilingual, and then some of your technical skills here. So this is a nice, well-rounded list of your skills and abilities. We've got your education. Scrolling down, we see that you've held a few administrative roles. So, we've got front desk, but then it says marketing assistant, right? And so one of the things that I want to highlight for you guys is many times you will wear multiple hats at a job. So maybe, yes, you were the front desk assistant, but if you're applying for media related jobs in the future, I would flop these two descriptors here. So media manager and designer's assistant. That's what I would just characterize your role as, if that's the experience that you want to highlight to get another media related job. So I would just call myself a media manager. or media manager, designer, assistant, and then highlight the things like responsible for designing flyers and business cards, and the things that you did in that role, like the content development portion of that job, because you want to show skills and experience related to the media related job that you were applying for. Same thing here, right? So you say you were front desk, but then you were in a marketing assistant, right? So just flip these, so marketing assistant and front desk, and then highlight here, translating media content, and then responsible for developing marketing materials. These are the areas that you'll want to highlight if in fact you are looking for more media related jobs. Last but not least, we've got Michael's resume here. So it says that you want to obtain a career in a field that will let you utilize your creativity. So scrolling down, again, you guys don't need to include your high school history at this point because you have your collegiate education listed there. Scrolling down, we've got your summary of qualifications, which includes some soft skills and then some technical skills here as well. You did some work in production, right? So I want to know more about what this means, right? So a nationally televised reality show, that's like really cool, but this is a very generic sort of descriptor of that, and I'd like to see you unpack this a bit more so I get a full vision of what you did in this role. And also, like, if there was a visual output or an asset, or you could link to the content that you helped create as a production assistant, that's something that you'll want to do from your portfolio. Looking at your skills and experiences, you've got a good amount of certifications, and these are all things, again, that you will want to back up with a portfolio site. So instead of just telling us about them, your portfolio site will demonstrate that skill set, demonstrate that experience through the sharing of your work, the sharing of your projects, and how you talk about them. If you guys have any questions about this feedback, let me know. The expectation is that you use what we talked about here to inform the next best iteration of your resume and to have it ready for your next portfolio class.